Kamala say, are you for a Palestinian state if Hamas is going to run that state?
Okay.
Yes or no?
And let's say you don't like her answer. Are you going to vote for Donald Trump?
No, I'm not.
Kamala
I just said I'm not going to vote for her.
Harris is not running for perfect. She's running against Trump. We have two choices. And so there are some things you might not know her answer to. And in 2024, unlike 2016 for a lot of the American people, we know exactly what Trump will do, who he is, and the kind of threat he is to democracy.
I don't know.
Threat to democracy. Here we go. Applause break from the dumbest brainwashed audience.
With Kamala,
Dumb.
we don't know her answer to anything.
Yes.
Okay,
But you know
and
his answer to.
And this is the problem with them not holding these horrible reporters. You don't hold their foot to the fire.
And the rational guy gets slapped around.
Exactly.
And he's against Trump.
And he's against, that's what I'm saying. And he's like, I'm not going to vote for him, but you guys, it's not holding their foot to the fire and not asking the actual questions, not stopping and going, okay, Kamala, time out, stop talking with your hands, answer the question. How are you going to do it? And we don't have no answers because people like Stephanie Rule protect them and they guide them and they make sure that they don't say anything completely stupid and they never challenge.
To follow up on what the Woke View did with their Joe Biden interview, MSNBC did a very softball and just a bizarre interview with Kamala Harris, and Patrick Bet-David is having none of it. Here on the PBD Podcast and the Value Time YouTube channel, Patrick Bet-David and his co-host on the PBD Podcast absolutely tore MSNBC and these woke hosts to shreds over this bizarre interview here with Kamala Harris. Let's check it out.
Talking about Kamala. Kamala did an interview yesterday. Okay, Rob, if you want to go to it. During the interview, the interviewer, who was just on Bill Maher defending Kamala Harris, and you have to see what she said on Bill Maher. But then let's first do this one. And then in this question, I think she asks, you're saying you're going to raise corporate taxes, but what if you don't have Senate? What if you don't have Congress? How are you going to do it? Listen to her answer. Go ahead.
Expanding that child tax credit, or you mentioned housing before, giving that extra money for a first home. If you can't raise corporate taxes, or if GOP takes control of the Senate, where do you get the money to do that? Do you still go forward with those plans and borrow?
Well, but we're going to have to raise corporate taxes, and we're going to have to make sure that the biggest corporations and billionaires pay their fair share. That's just it. It's about paying their fair share.
That's not an answer.
Expanding
You're
that
running for president. Well, you sound like a dictator. We're going to have to.
Yeah.
Right? She's asking you, how are you going to do it? Rob, can you pull the clip, if you have it, with her debriefing after the interview where she says, honest, that's the one right there. If you could play this clip. So she's not being interviewed afterwards saying, so how was it? Go ahead.
Talk about that answer. I do, but here's what's a little tricky. She doesn't answer the question around if the GOP is controlling the Senate, if she can't raise corporate taxes, where is she going to get the money from, to expand the child tax credit and do all the things she wants to do. And she says, we just have to do it. And that's great, and that's a campaign promise. But the issue is, if it means we're just going to borrow again, then what we're doing is we're just never addressing the deficit. And back in the days when you were a proud Republican, debts and deficits mattered.
Rob, and then go to her, Stephanie Rule, on Bill Maher.
Mm-hmm.
Go to her on Bill Maher. Yeah, right there.
Right there.
That's the one. You just had it. Right there, right there. Okay. Go for it. Watch this exchange.
Ask Kamala, say, are you for a Palestinian state if Hamas is going to run that state?
Okay.
Yes or no?
And let's say you don't like her answer. Are you going to vote for Donald Trump?
No, I'm not.
Kamala
I just said I'm not going to vote for her.
Harris is not running for perfect. She's running against Trump. We have two choices. And so there are some things you might not know her answer to. And in 2024, unlike 2016 for a lot of the American people, we know exactly what Trump will do, who he is, and the kind of threat he is to democracy.
I don't know.
Threat to democracy. Here we go. Applause break from the dumbest brainwashed audience.
With Kamala, we don't know her answer to anything.
Yes.
Okay,
But you know
and I
his
think
answer to everything.
And that's all that matters, right? That's literally all that matters to these people, man. It's so crazy. It's crazy. The craziest part is not the fact that Democrats, like Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or any of these people, it's the craziest part is not them running on the fact that they are not Donald Trump, because that's all that they're running on. And, hey, we're not Donald Trump, vote for us. The craziest part is there's people like this woke idiot going on Bill Maher and this clip that the PBD podcast here is showing and defending the fact that Kamala Harris is running on nothing except for the fact that she's not Donald Trump. And there's tons of people out there who will go on shows like Bill Maher, go on shows like Patrick Bet-David's show, go on all these shows and defend the fact that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden should be the president just based on the fact that they aren't Donald Trump. And then there's millions and millions of voters out there who will vote for them just because they say, vote for us, we're not Donald Trump. That's the biggest black pill ever, is whenever you realize that these people are winning elections just based on the fact that they aren't this other guy. And it would be understandable if he was like a Hitler or somebody, like if he was trying to actually overthrow the government. But he just lied about, they lie and lie about on Bill Maher, on PBD Podcast, on The View. They lie about him trying to overthrow the government, trying to, being a threat to democracy and all this stuff. It's all nonsense, but they all believe it. And if anybody would actually look into the fact that this is nonsense, if it's nonsense or not, they would quickly come to the realization, oh, this is nonsense. But they don't even want to do that because they would rather just believe the comforting lie rather than accept the uncomfortable truth. That's how all these people operate. And some of them take it so far as to go on Bill Maher and defend Kamala Harris, like this woke lunatic right here.
That's why I would never vote for him, and people shouldn't vote for him. But people also are expected to have some idea of what the program is of the person you're supposed to vote for. You're just not supposed to say, well, you have to vote for Y because X is this, that, and the other. Let's find out a little bit more. And I don't think it's a lot to ask her to sit down for a real interview.
90 people in the audience are awake.
Within the Democrat Party, you are not allowed to be a rational opponent of Trump.
Then
You have
I would
to
just
be.
say to that, when you move to Nirvana, give me your real estate broker's number and I'll be your next door neighbor. We don't live there.
Oh, God.
Tom, what do you think? What do you think about the whole Kamala question from the beginning? Economy, what are you going to do? We have to, and into all this stuff.
Well, there's two problems here, and I just made the point about, I won't belabor it, about the reporter. You're not allowed to be a
If you enjoy content like this, then make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video.
rational opponent of Trump, meaning you can't be an opponent of Trump and be rational about any criticism of Kamala Harris, because Stephanie Ruhle there is embarrassing and embarrassed herself. She's definitely a little ticked the way she's being attacked for how she conducted the interview. But on the other side, I'm sitting here wondering, did Kamala Harris understand how government really works in that moment? Did she have a rational thought about that? Because I remember Clinton having to work with Republican Congress, and Clinton, who came up and said, look, we're gonna have to make some compromise. We have to negotiate point by point, and there's things that they want. We have to get this. So I have to work through that Congress to make it happen. He knew. And this is after Lewinsky in his second term, where he was a real economic centrist. And so you would hear it.
But the difference is Clinton actually wanted to do things. Kamala Harris has nothing that she actually wants to accomplish other than getting in the White House as the president. That's it. So she hasn't even had to think this through. Like where Clinton was like, okay, we're going to have to negotiate on X point, on Y point, on X, Y, on all of these points with Congress in order to come to the agreement that we actually want to accomplish here. We're going to have to negotiate on all these different points. Kamala Harris hasn't even had to think that through because she doesn't actually want to accomplish anything other than getting power, other than getting in the White House as the president. That's it. So whenever she's asked the question, how are you going to do this whenever you're dealing with a Congress that isn't going to agree with you on this? Well, she has no answer because she hasn't thought that far ahead. All she's thinking is, must get in the president, must win the presidency at all costs. Guys, I am not Donald Trump. Vote for me. She hasn't even stated like an opinion or a policy that she wants to actually run on. So she hasn't thought that far ahead. There's no way that she has thought that far ahead because she wouldn't have given answers like, how are you going to do this whenever the Congress won't agree with this? Well, we have to do that. Yeah, I know, but how? And she doesn't have an answer. And of course, MSNBC won't press her on that.
From there, you don't hear it from her. She's like, we just have to get it done. And she goes back to the campaign things. It just shows a very vacuous, vapid, shallow, uninformed candidate who's not coming out with anything that sounds like a reasoned approach. And by the way, they're running scared, Pat. If you want to talk about her poll for a split second, they're running scared. They believe, Kamala's side believes that they have one path right now. You know what that path is? Rob, do you have that chart? I'll show you the map. over the weekend, they looked at Arizona and Nevada. There it is. Back. No, go to the map of the U.S. Right there. Other one. There we go. They believe this is where it is, Pat. See, there's no Wisconsin, there's no Nevada, there's no Arizona. Look at North Carolina and Georgia. They believe that's what they have to win. They have conceded the fact that they believe Trump's going to win Pennsylvania, the way they're spending in it, and they have conceded Arizona. But take a look at what they are. They're doing everything they can on Michigan, North Carolina, and Georgia. That is the path they think they have. Because she's not coming out and gaining any momentum at all. This election could be over at 11:30 on election night. This is what they're trying to do. They have only two states going after.
What's her name, Adam? Stephanie
Rule.
Stephanie Rule. Okay, she's obviously. I mean, Trump derangement syndrome, as we see it with a lot of people. She's on Bill Maher. That audience. By the way, I've been there. I've been in that audience. It's the worst. Okay, it's the worst audience ever. But she talks all that crap on Bill Maher. She gets this, applause break. She thinks she's in charge. Kamala's campaign sees that. They get her an interview thinking it's going to be a softball interview. Then you have her in front of you and you don't challenge her. Then you go on another interview and you talk shit about her not answering the question. And this is the problem with them not holding these horrible reporters. You don't hold their foot to the fire.
And the rational guy gets slapped around.
Exactly.
And he's against Trump.
And he's against, that's what I'm saying. And he's like, I'm not going to vote for him, but you guys, it's not holding their foot to the fire and not asking the actual questions, not stopping and going, okay, Kamala, time out, stop talking with your hands, answer the question. How are you going to do it? And we don't have no answers because people like Stephanie Rule protect them and they guide them and they make sure that they don't say anything completely stupid and they never challenge them.
Well, they want you to talk with your hands on the DNC, but they want you to do it like this.
No, meanwhile.
So I actually think that Stephanie Rule, this is actually, it's going to be a weird take. I actually think she's one of the smartest women in the business.
Oh, shocker. Shocker that Adam would think that, right? Oh, man. Adam, why do you do this to yourself, bro? There's going to be a ton of people going after Adam in the comments, and I don't know what's going to happen next, but if he keeps saying positive stuff about her, then Vinny's going to go after him, PBD's going to go after him. Let's check it out.
However, she's making excuses for someone with zero policy. And that's the problem that I have with Stephanie that I'm trying to understand her. Because if you watch Stephanie, I mean, whether she's on CNBC or MSNBC, she's a beast. She's a massive economic, political correspondent. She's not an idiot.
So what happens in this case?
Hold on. So in the episode with Bill Maher, she was sitting there with it was Bret Stephens, who's a writer for the New York Times.
Yep.
Not exactly a conservative view right there. And he's basically being like, look, I'm just going to come out and say it. Yeah, Bret Stephens, this guy. I'm not going to vote for Trump. I just can't. Not my guy. But are we really going to sit here and expect nothing from Kamala? We're just going to just go with no, there's no policy. She's just going on joy and vibes. Are we really doing this? And she's like, well, what are you going to do? Vote for Trump? He's like, well, I'm not going to vote for Trump.
Yeah, because
so you see this sort of mental...
she's not answering the question.
Exactly. So you see this sort of mental gymnastics where it's like, you can't vote for that. You can't vote for that. But what are you willing to accept over here? Are you willing to accept an literally vegetable Biden if he was running? Would you vote for that?
Yes, 100% they would. 100%. That's what I come after people like Anna Kasparian and people like that, because they complain so much about Joe Biden now. Like, now that he's dropped out of the race, like, they talk so badly about him. And yet, number one, you would have voted for him in this next election. And number two, you voted for him and got him elected in the previous election whenever we already knew, like, yeah, Joe Biden has definitely declined a bit. But, like, he was already really bad off 4 years ago when he got elected. He was already that bad. So, like, I don't know what they expected. They voted for exactly the person that's in the White House right now. And he's not even actually in the White House hardly ever. He's not even, like, barely, I don't even think he's actually the president. But, like, these people, they genuinely don't care. They like to act like they care. And whenever Joe Biden drops out of the race, they talk about him like he's so bad and everything. But at the same time, like, they would vote for him if he was running again, because guess what? He's not Donald Trump. And that's literally all they got. That's it. Once Donald Trump, I know that people get mad at me for saying this, but I think one of the best things that could possibly happen for the Republican Party is when Donald Trump is not eligible to run for president anymore. Because what are they going to say after that? They're going to actually have to come up with policies. And it seems like their voter base is not very interested in actual policy. They're just interested in Donald Trump losing. So whenever Donald Trump is not there anymore, whenever they don't have a boogeyman anymore, what are they going to run on? they're going to just try to paint Vivek Ramaswamy and these people to be some evil, people like Donald Trump. But I don't think it's going to hit the same. I don't think it's going to work the same as Donald Trump, because Donald Trump has gotten, he was a businessman growing up. He's like he's had a lot of instances that were caught on camera of him with like the locker room talk stuff. So they could spin that into being like racist or sexist or whatever. Vivek seems like he's been very calculated for most of his adult life. So I don't think they'll be able to find too much on Vivek. So whenever Donald Trump is gone, they have no more boogeyman. How the hell are they going to win any elections? How are they going to get any votes? I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. And what do you think about this whole Patrick Bet-David going after this woke idiot here on MSNBC and also on Bill Maher's show? Let me know in the comments what you think about this whole PBD podcast episode.